Yeah, so let me know what questions you have.
Yeah, so I kind of have like three separate, I guess, categories of questions. So I'm currently pursuing like a dual master's, and I guess like my first question is I've watched a lot of your videos about like how to apply for the PhD and how different it is in comparison to like applying to undergrad or a master's level. So I guess like starting with what how do I phrase this? Um What do you think is the most important part of the PhD application process that I could start preparing for now? I just started my dual degree, so I won't be graduating until not this December, but the following December, so I still got some time. But I really wanted to like see if there's anything I can do to kind of like get ahead of the progress and all that process.
Well, that's really great that you're already thinking so many steps ahead. I definitely was not like that, but I'm all for planning. So I think it's great that you're thinking ahead. And I don't think it's too early to start thinking about it, but I would say there's nothing that you need to stress about right now. But think about is okay. Um,
Okay.
so give me like how many years from now do you think you'll like apply for programs?
I think do you mean like start beginning to apply to PhD
Yeah, or
programs?
just like which cycle? Like, are you going to apply fall of 2026? Is that
Uh, I'll start applying next year for the fall of 2027.
to start?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So very early. Yes. So, which is great. Have you found my website or my little blog where I give you step-by-step instructions on my timeline and what I went through? Perfect. So take a look at that.
Okay.
Know that like I didn't start thinking about applying to programs until August, right before the application cycle. So you
Oh,
are
wow.
like a year and a half ahead. So I just want you to know that. Um, in terms of like preparing the application itself, I wouldn't worry too much, but I think what's nice is that because you're thinking about this so far in advance, you can start thinking about what experiences you want to have so that you can talk about it in your application. I didn't really have the luxury of that. I was just kind of like, well, I'm applying and this is my CV. I can't change it now. So I would really just recommend trying to get as much research experience as you can. If you know you're going to do a PhD in advance, I think the biggest thing is to try to get more research experience on your CV. If you can get some kind of a publication, that would also be a, nice little win, but not necessary.
Do you recommend kind of staying consistent with like one research lab or experience or jumping around and like trying out different things? Because I currently have a graduate research assistant. I've been getting to know the team very well this past year, and some people have recommended maybe let's try out something else and see if I like it better or to add, I guess, another thing to the CV. But I kind of want to hear from you if you think that would be better or if just staying consistent. Good.
Are you gaining like a lot of skills in the lab?
It's more like with different project managers and like what they're doing, kind of. So a lot of data, like analyst stuff I've been
Okay.
learning.
That sounds like a good solid experience. I think it's worth showing that you know how to collaborate and do more kind of, interdisciplinary. I mean, yeah, I guess my recommendation is if you feel like you have the bandwidth, maybe find another project just to show that you know how to collaborate with many groups, because that's always a strength in your application. But it doesn't have to necessarily be like another research lab, because that sounds like a lot, to commit to. It could
Mhm.
be, that you're working at some department or organization or nonprofit and doing some type of research for them. So it doesn't have to always be squarely, okay, this is like research that I'm doing in a research lab and just doing more of that. It can be like, how are you also applying your research skills in other settings? So if that makes it more easy or like more interesting for you, you can do that, or you can just try to find more labs and stuff to collaborate with. Yeah, I think it's worth diversifying. Like I think it's good to have like a lot of, otherwise then your personal statement or your CV is just going to have only one thing on it. Um, so you have the time. I wouldn't go like start looking to get involved in like 10 different things, that would be a lot, but just maybe like one or two. And it doesn't have to be like another full-time lab job.
Okay. Um, for I watched some of your videos about how like kind of like what you recommend is the most important in the PhD application process. Big ones like the personal statement and not worrying too much about a GRE, which thank you for saying that. But I was kind of wondering, since you started so late in the like kind of like application cycle, did you reach out to any professor specifically um to talk about like that you were interested in their research or anything like that before you finished applying? Because um, one of my friends recently got into a PhD program, but they're going straight from undergrad, and they said that unless I'm able to reach out to certain professors and have one endorse me already, then I have a very bad shot of getting into the PhD program itself. So I was wondering if that was true or not, or what you recommend with that.
Yeah, I would say that that advice is generally correct. Like you do want to connect with professors before applying. It's different at every place. Some, yes, essentially in order you when you get accepted into a PhD program and start the PhD program, you need to be matched with an advisor. So yes, someone at that school needs to say, "Hey, I do want to take Jessica on as my mentee, whether financially or just time commitment of mentoring that person." So yes, there is something like that that needs to happen. So any sort of pre-application reaching out that you can do to help increase those chances, and just put like a face to your application, I think is helpful. I do say that there are some programs where they like refuse to meet with students before applying, and that's in some cases. And you'll learn that when you reach out and they're like, we have a policy where we don't meet with students. Then they just match people, and that's how it goes. But I generally would say that is the other big key to getting into programs is reaching out to faculty, professors, and seeing if it's a good match and if they would be willing to essentially be your mentor or advisor if you were to start there.
Would you say the best way to contact them is just through email? At least for grad school, when I tried doing that, I think I emailed maybe 25 professors and like two responded. And I can't imagine what it's like for a school as large as Harvard if anyone would actually respond, especially so far like away from the year I want to apply for.
Yeah, so if you look at my blog, it has a little email template. I absolutely think cold email is the best way to go.
Okay.
I would not reach out now. It's way too early. I would wait until
Okay.
I'd say it's like around September or October, like right when you're working on your application is when you want to reach out. If you do it too early or too late, especially too early, they're not going to respond. So,
Do you mean the September or October right before you the deadline of like that
yes.
December?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, like just a few months before.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, okay.
Yeah.
I was
If it's
assuming it
too
was
early, then they're like,
that's true.
it's too far away. So, and I would say that I think professors are more keen on replying to PhD student emails because for master's program, I didn't email anyone when I was applying to master's because I think there's less importance placed on that like advisor mentee match, especially because a lot of PhD programs they fund you. So like there's just more that goes into it. Whereas for master's programs, it's kind of like there's hundreds of people who, sometimes will get into a program. So I would say that you might get better luck with responses with PhD mentor connections. And yeah, use the email template that's on my
Okay,
blog. I think
awesome.
it's a winner.
Okay, I'll definitely look at that.
So unless there's like a specific project at Harvard that you really want to work on, and that's the reason why you're reaching out, then I would say maybe try to go for it. But if the reason why is that you just want to start networking early, it might be hard to find opportunities.
Okay, that makes sense. Would you say that like when you got to Harvard though, whoever you were assigned to, were you able to kind of um I guess when you're assigned to like a mentor, since it's such an interdisciplinary program, would you be able to work with or at least kind of like tag along with other professors' research or anything like that very easily?
Absolutely. It's so once
Okay.
you're there, yeah, it's like you can work with, oh, it's so easy to collaborate. People
Okay.
love working. Yeah, I was working with a bunch of people, different faculty within my department, outside of my department, at other, Boston Children's Hospital, Mass General, other universities. Like I worked with postdocs, I worked with yeah. So I was doing my little thing, collaborating everywhere when I was there.
So did were you able to just uh I guess like since it was so flexible, how does the matchup work? Is it just you assign one main person and then you have all of these people you can possibly network with or talk to? Or is it just like you start with one person and if you find that your research aligns better with someone else's, you can switch over? Or are you just with that person for all of your PhD?
Yeah, so you're assigned I think I forget what they're called, like an academic advisor. But you do have one main advisor. You can switch if you want, but there's like more formal, it's more complicated than just saying like I want to switch advisors. Like it's
Okay.
a little complicated. You do have a dissertation committee that you form yourself. So inherently you will need to find at least two other co-mentors in order to write your dissertation. Um, and then from there, it's sort of just like your own initiative, like you reaching out, like cold emailing, or like I would sometimes just talk to professors of classes that I took that I was really interested in, and that would lead to collaboration. So, um, yeah, that's
Okay. Um, I'm trying to think. You've been very thorough in all your responses, so thank you. I
oh,
like you've been like answering like two of my questions at once, so now I'm just like trying to figure out which ones I'm still trying to
that's
ask.
okay. You can ask me the same. Yeah, no, there's no rules am I hitting all your three buckets or however many?
Yeah, well, like I guess the three buckets was like I wanted to ask about like the program and then like emissions and then kind of like the life there.
Okay.
Oh, well, which re reminds me, since you went from a master's to a PhD, how different do you think the like work-life balance was there, especially like in Boston being like very expensive? I guess there's two questions in one. Is that how much more difficult was it once you enter that PhD program in comparison to your master's? And also, do you think with the funding and everything that was given to you, was that enough to, I guess, survive in Boston since that's a very expensive area?
All right, I'll answer the first question because, and then you might need to re-ask me the second one. So going from grad school MPH to PhD in terms of work-life balance, honestly, I think it's different because when I was a master's student, I was like involved in like 10 clubs. Like I was doing all the stuff I didn't really want to do. So I was like, when I got to Harvard, I was like, no more joining clubs. Like I'm here to do research now. And I also was like a big part of my PhD experience was tainted by COVID-19. So there's just like a lot,
Mm.
weird. But I would say like, I don't know. I felt like I had really good work-life balance in both my master's and my PhD. I, you know, did my schoolwork. I had fun with friends. I exercised. I ate well. I took care of my body. I slept. Like I visited family. Like took my vacations. I don't know. I did everything I needed to and didn't and was never stressed about that. It's not like I ever felt like I lost sleep because I couldn't finish my work. Like that never I've like I don't think I ever pulled like an all-nighter for work reasons.
I've already pulled many all-nighters this
Yeah, I
semester.
mean,
And
but I think part of that too is like you just figure out kind of like how you work efficiently, and I figured that out very early on how to organize myself really well, and sounds like you do too with how well you're planning ahead. So, I think being a planner really helps. It helped me at least. Okay, second question, which was cost of living in Boston. So, fun fact, and this is not the case, I think, everywhere, but they upped the student stipend. So I think it's now in the 50s now, 50K per year. And I'm like, what? I like decided to go to school at the wrong time. Uh, that's like a lot, honestly, for a PhD stipend. And yeah, you're not going to be saving money as a doctoral student. That's the
yeah.
reality. Um, but and you're not going to be eating at like Michelin star restaurants every week, you know? But it's enough to like do what you need to do. I was still getting groceries and eating healthy and able to go out and like have dinner and drinks with friends, pay for my workout classes and Ubers. Like I think you just budget and you know, I think it's doable. And, there are opportunities to also teach or be a research assistant and get a little extra money in some cases. So I was doing that in my second, third, and fourth years to help supplement.
Mhm. So how does I thought that you had it was mandatory for you to teach or be like a research assistant in addition to like your funding for PhD. You're saying that you receive additional funding?
Yeah, so if you finish all those requirements, then you can do more. Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then get paid for that. Because when I started the program, there wasn't a very heavy teaching requirement or research requirement. There was like one semester. So I just finished that, and then anything I did beyond that was paid. But they changed that. So because now they're offering, at least for my program, they're offering students 5 years of funding instead of four. And because of that, you have to do more teaching and stuff, and you don't get to hit that sort of like like the time that you can get paid until a little bit later. But um even without that, it's still livable. Like you just aren't going to be living in luxury. So that's the thing. You might not be able to like afford a really nice place. Like that's like another thing. Like you might have to have a roommate, but that could be fun. So it's just like things like that.
Okay. Did you have any external funding?
Yeah, so what happens is you can apply for, at least this is a Harvard, at least for my program. So this is very specific, but like let's say you get an F-31, which is an NIH pre-doctoral fellowship. Unfortunately that just you don't get any it's not like you get your stipend and then that extra money. That money from the NIH replaces your stipend that the program is giving you. But I think what they're doing now is they're incentivizing it where they do give you like a bonus if you get outside funding, and it's like a couple $1,000s or more. It's enough to where it would have incentivized me to work harder to submit a better F-31, but I didn't have that when I was applying. A lot of this is all new, like stuff that happened like, literally the year after. And I was like, darn. Uh, so
Okay. I guess I just have like I guess general questions about missions. They're very specific, so if you cannot answer them, don't feel any pressure. I'm just like trying to like kind of figure out. I'm just like very overwhelmed with how the PhD process works. So like I feel like for undergrad and masters, it was very straightforward with what they're looking at. Like the better GRE score, good. The better your academics, good. The better your recommendations, amazing. Um, I'm just okay.
they are not going to scrutinize your grades. They just want to know that you've done well overall. I was lucky in that my master's program at Yale was pass, no pass, or honors, high pass, pass, no pass. That was the
That
grade
seems
system. And then I like barely passed a class. But instead of it probably saying a C minus, it said P. And I was like, wow, that looks so much better than a C. P's get degrees and gets you into PhD programs. So I would not worry too much about grades as long as you're not failing classes and not, yeah, sounds like you're fine.
Okay.
Um, I think they do actually care more about extracurriculars, quite honestly, because that's what you're going to talk about in your personal statement. Your personal statement's not going to be about how hard you study to get all your A's. It's going to be like what you did, who makes you who you are. So I think that your the combination of your what sounds like excellent grades plus any extracurriculars and research that you do is going to be what they care about the most.
What I the first video I watched it's actually a funny story how I came across your YouTube channel and right after that conversation on YouTube like the entire first line of suggested videos was how to get into Harvard's population health science program and it was like you there and I was telling all my friends that my computer's listening to me because I did not search a single thing up. You just popped up after that conversation. I thought that was insane. Um,
I
I just thought it was
swear this
very
happens. Like, I think this happened the other day. My husband and I were talking about something, and then we like opened our phone, and Amazon was like, "We recommend that you buy." I was like, "Weren't we like only just talking about this 5 minutes ago?" Yeah, our phones are definitely listening to us. So
definitely. But my biggest concern was like uh I was actually talking to a professor about like what they look for the most in PhD programs, and they brought up personal statements. And then the first video I watched about you was the like what the PhD program looks for and about the personal statement. And I was wondering if you had any like specific tips or advice on how to like, I guess this is a very ambiguous question, but just kind of like what makes the personal statement strong in this kind of context? And like what made your personal statement stand out, kind of, because I don't know what to focus on or like not writing it now, but when I do eventually write it.
yeah. So I have some other videos about personal statements that you can watch. But I'll give you the quick summary of them now. And that is, I think it's really important to write a personal statement that is memorable. Like I know that's also a vague response, and I give a lot more like specific advice on how to do this. It's also in my blog. But essentially, you want something that has a hook that grabs people in. I always tell people like the first paragraph is so important because that's the first thing that some people are reading about you. And then, really, the rest of your statement is supposed to be really detailed information about your research experience and then why you want to get a PhD and what you're going to learn and then how you're going to go off and do amazing things afterwards. And there's no recipe for like how to, necessarily exactly what to say in that part of the program. It depends, or sorry, that part of the statement. That just depends on your experience. Um, and so I would really focus on summarizing your research experience and doing so in a very detailed way. Because I think that's also another thing is people aren't detailed enough. Like they don't talk about exactly what skills they have and what skills they want to learn and like what specific research questions or topics that they want to explore. So I think the more specific you can be, the better. Um, I would say like write your personal statement and then I'm happy to share mine with you after you draft yours and um, yeah, we can sort of go from there. But I obviously there are examples that exist that will help guide your writing as well. But tell your story, be detailed, and that's something that you could theoretically start working on early, but like gain the research experience first. Like I would not even start writing that until maybe the summer before if you're so inclined to get a head start.
Okay. What skills do you think that you learned in undergrad or master's that really helped you when you were doing your PhD program?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like talk about like what data analysis you can do, what softwares you like literally get that detailed so that you know that they know that you're not just sort of saying like, yeah, I have research experience. It's like there's a difference between saying like I was a part of a lab and I helped different project managers work on their analytic projects and or saying like I was on a project titled X, Y, and Z where I helped professor, so and so work on this project coding in R and running logistic regression to look at mental health outcomes among this very specific, like the more detailed you can be in describing everything, they're like, wow, that sounds amazing, versus like, okay, this person can do research, but exactly how?
What career paths do you think, like, do you think this PhD program limits you at all to only being like a professor once you finish your PhD? Or do you think there's a lot of people who graduate from this program are able to go on and be like, for example, GIS directors or managers or things like that? Okay,
Absolutely
so it's not limiting at all.
no.
Okay.
I would say more than half of my cohort and classmates wanted to do a non-academia route.
Mhm.
I chose the academia routes, and there are days like these past couple weeks where I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't think a non-academia route is a bad idea at all with a PhD. So it definitely opens lots of doors, not just in academia.
Okay. That's really all the questions I have right now. So,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
really appreciate this.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Feel free to reach out, keep in touch. I know you're still early in the process, but as you get closer, I'm always still here for you. You have my email. Don't stress. Like you're doing so well already, so early. Enjoy your time in your master's too. I mean, honestly, like I look back and my master's was like the most fun time. Like,
Really?
yeah, I
This
don't
has
know.
been my most stressful time of my life.
I mean, there were stressful pockets. I would say first year was more stressful for me, but once I adjusted, like second year was like so much fun in my master's program. Like my friends and I, we would stay up all night playing Catan when it was like snowstorming outside, and like we had a lot of board game nights, cooked together. Like I don't know, and I don't do any of that kind of stuff now because I'm not in grad school anymore. So enjoy. Yes,
I'll
keep
try.
up the hard work you're doing, and you got this. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll definitely reach out again. Thank you for your time and everything.